Hi everyone, I'm here live with George Von Driska, the managing editor of WWGOA, Woodworkers Guild of America, and he's here to answer all of your woodworking questions.
Or as many as we can get to.
That's right. So feel free to go ahead and post in the comments, and we are going to just get going. We've got questions coming in left and right.
Launch them.
So we're starting. John asked, have you had any experience using Jet's 10-inch planer jointer combo?
I haven't, but I'm very intrigued by that idea. I think it's a great mix of machines, jointer, planer. So I'd be interested to know more about it. Let us know if you get one and you like it. But no, I've not used that particular machine.
Thank you very much, George. Our next question comes from Bob. Bob would like to know, what is the difference between using a domino and a beadlock for joints other than the shape?
Well, when you play dominoes, you have to match all the little numbers. I'm getting the stink eye. You got to start with a joke, man. You don't have to start with a joke. Okay, so let's get stuff, and I'll have you do a little zoom, Krista. So there's a festool domino, and here comes a beadlock. So there's the devices about which we are speaking. Then difference between. So let me see if I got some more stuff. I got one of those. Okay, we're gonna go with this. All right, so let's actually do this. The beadlock is a pretty cool thing. If you've not seen it yet, Krista, I'm going to spin the bench, and I'm going to put a chunk of wood in the vise, and I'm going to ask you to sort of get where you're looking right down at this piece of wood in the vise. And then I clamp.
Ooh, someone in the chat has said that the Jet, like the planer joiner, they say Jet makes really good products, but that's really light and doesn't really like it. Not their best product.
Wow.
So thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, good to know. Here's the beadlock device, and we've got a hardened drill guide, 3 holes. The way this works is there is an alignment window here. I would put that on my registration mark, like so. Clamp it in place, or as I like to say, clamp it, Jed. And then you use just a standard 3/8 drill bit. Ready?
Yeah.
Where you want to be? Now, part of what's key here is we move a component, but you don't loosen the clamp. So we move this like that. So I had access to 3 holes on the first go round. Now, because of this overlay, that tab, I only have access to 2 holes. And it gives us this series of overlapping holes. We can change that spacing. There are shims in there between the drill guide and the face, so that it would end up centered on our 3/4 inch stock. And then the beadlock material, I'm going to angle that a little bit so you get it in profile. That's the beadlock material. You buy that. It looks exactly like the 5 holes you just drilled. Loose tenon operation. Here is a domino. So you can tell they are very similar. The big difference is going to be domino provides the ability to do a bunch of different size dominoes. Beadlock, I believe, is 3/8 and half. I don't think you can do a 1/4 inch bead, but I could be wrong with that. When it comes to strength of joint, chairs are pretty hard on joinery. I would not be adverse to using either of these approaches to build a chair. So domino is going to give you a lot more versatility. It's going to let you do angled joinery, which would be difficult, maybe not impossible, but difficult to do with the beadlock. Way faster. But we've used beadlock in a lot of my hands-on classes, and it's effective. Students love it. It's an inexpensive setup to add to your shop.
All right, thank you very much, George. So Dan has a question. He's new to turning and he was attempting to turn an 8-inch bowl. He has his tool rest adjusted to where the cutter is right at the middle of the bowl every minute. Oh, wait a minute. Every minute or so, his tool would grab and he would get popped in the face shield by the handle. He changed the position of his carbide tool higher and lower with no difference. All said and done, the bowl ended up exploding in pieces where the tool caught. Any advice? Thank you.
Let's go to the lathe, man. I love turning. It's my favorite thing. So sidebar, what?
Can you move that? Oh, thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You know what? And let's tell me if I do this, or we can ask the folks at home. The lighting, these are halogen lights on here, so that might be a little bit. It might make things look a little funky from color. Is that better, Krista, or worse?
I don't think it matters, but
okay.
Our viewers can tell us.
Okay. Side note, this particular bowl is pretty cool. This was turned from a piece of laminated beam like you would use structurally in your house. That's why it's got all these different stripes in it. The stripes are the layers of laminated beam. Lam beam is like a big chunk of plywood. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting to try, and it was pretty cool. So let's throw this thing on a 4-jaw chuck.
George, do you need me to be over there, Mom?
I think you're okay, and I'm going to ask you to be able to see the height of the tool rest relative to the work. So, no, you're going to be okay.
Okay.
I was going to say maybe you got to lower the camera a little, but I think you're going to be okay. All right, so this was Matt, is that right? Or Don? Dan, geez. Okay. Dan is asking about a potential problem where the handle of his chisel is kicking up like this. So I would say, Dan, my guess is going to be maybe you have your tool rest too far from your work. We need to keep that as close as it can be at all times without rubbing. And I'm going to throw a face shield on here and we'll actually do a little bit of cutting. I'm using a round nose scraper. Now Dan mentioned a carbide chisel, but the net effect is going to be the same. Here's what we're looking for is the top of the tool rest should be the thickness of the chisel below the center line of the work. So net effect, we want the tip of the chisel to be right at the center of the bowl.
Oh, it's too dark now. Sorry, guys.
Can I throw a little light in there for you?
Maybe. Yeah, try that. Oh, try that. Do that again.
Am I blowing you out?
Nope.
Okay.
Perfect.
Tip of the chisel right on the center line of the bowl. When the chisel is horizontal, if you're doing a scraping technique, the chisel is commonly just held horizontally like this. Shearing is a whole different kettle of fish. So let's make this happen. And if we work like this, where the cantilever of the chisel tip here relative to the length of the handle is really minimal, it's really hard for the chisel to catch and get enough leverage to make the handle pop up here. We need to keep that really close. There are curved tool rests, a good investment if you're doing a lot of bowl work, because here you can see this part of the tool rest is nice and close, but here, because of the curve of the bowl, the tool rest is far away. If we had a curved tool rest, we could be in there closer. So I would check on distance between tool rest and bowl. And then additionally, be sure your chisel's nice and sharp. If it's dull, that's another thing that can cause it to catch. And if it's dull, you might be pushing too hard. And especially when you talk about a bowl completely blowing up on you, maybe your chisel's dull and you're just leaning on it harder than you should.
Thank you. We actually have another turning question, which maybe we want to answer right now. Where did I see it? Carl is a novice woodworker trying to turn pen blanks. lately, half of his pen blanks, mostly rosewood, have been breaking. Is it because of the speed he's turning them? Are his tools not sharp enough? Or is it because he doesn't have very good eyesight?
If the blanks are blowing up, I'm going to say the first thing I would look at is sharpness of chisels. Just like I talked about here with the bowl, if the chisels are dull, and as a result you're sort of forcing them into the work, that's a really good way to blow up bowl, spindle blanks, whatever it is. So sharpen your chisels. Speed, little pen blanks 3/4 by 3/4 can run pretty fast. You can run those 1500 RPM or faster. So if you're in that speed range, I don't think that's gonna, and too slow, I don't think would make them bust on you. So I would definitely look at your chisels.
Perfect, thank you. Another turning question. Wow, it seems to be the
It's turning month.
topic of the night.
So, and here's why we made it turning month is because the huge turning symposium is right now in Atlanta. It's going on right now. And we thought not everybody can get to the turning symposium in Atlanta. So we're going to bring turning to our readers, our viewers, by making June turning month. So you'll see in the newsletter, you're going to get swamped with turning information over the next month.
Okay. Mike says his students make pens for the Freedom Pen Project.
That's very cool.
Yep. And they've been having issues turning black palm and red palm blades. Do you happen to have any suggestions?
I think it's another sharp chisel thing. Isn't the, I've not turned palm, but I think it's like, I don't know, sort of tubular, isn't it? Like, it would be what I would call very open grained. So I think it's going to take sharp chisels and a light touch and a high RPM so that they're not leaning on those chisels hard in order to make their cuts. We're back to sharp chisels again.
All right. I would suggest you come over here.
Okay, walk this way.
And while we're going over there, I'll have you answer a couple questions here. Mary had to cut down a cedar tree. It was one of her dad's that he had planted 60 years ago. She's wondering if you have any patterns or videos for making a desk out of it, as she hates to see it go to waste.
Well, I know that there is on GOA.com, WWGOA.com. I know that there is a video tutorial of a what's called a sawhorse desk. In fact, the sawhorse desk I built was in my son's bedroom. So here's the thing, Mary. Whenever you're looking, and for any of you folks that are looking to know, do we have information on, the easiest way to crack that nut is to go to WWGOA.com. Upper right-hand corner, there's a search window. And we work really hard to tag our content. So if you put in there desk or mortise and tenon or dado or domino or beadlock, any content that's a match is going to pop up on the resulting page. And so that'll be your best way to see what's available on our site for plans, techniques, whatever you're looking for.
Perfect. Alan has a question. As a hobby, he does a lot of refinishing. Occasionally, he gets to do a dining room table that has a wood grain running diagonally and also lengthwise. Okay. His question is, how should we properly sand it? Does it really matter? He feels like it would be very time-consuming to sand each section separately.
Yeah, I think if you're using a random orbit sander, it's not a lineal motion, it's an orbital motion. So I don't think a relationship to the grain is going to be a big deal. Now, that being said, I've been told you get optimal results even with a random orbit sander by moving the machine parallel to the grain. But I don't think for what you're doing, it's going to be a deal breaker. I don't think you're going to end up with swirl marks on one grain pattern or the other that's going to mess you up. So random orbit sander, I don't think would be an issue. You get to hand sanding, you got to follow the grain.
Perfect. John wants to know, he has an oak table which has some water damage on it and removed some finish. Is there a way to tell what kind of finish the manufacturer used? Like, is it varnish or shellac?
Sure. So here's a finishing test, or what is my finish test that you can do. You stay here for just a second and maybe promote the newsletter or something, because I'm going to come right back.
Oh, all right. Well, since George just disappeared on us, I'm just going to remind you that I'm apparently here with George von Driska, as you can see in the bottom there, I just threw it up. Managing editor of Woodworkers Guild of America. Go on out if you haven't already and like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, go to WWGOA.com and sign up for the free newsletter if you've not done that either. There's a lot of great information on there, and here he is.
Good timing.
Perfect.
All right. So the question that we're throwing back to here is, what is this finish? So here's what you can do. Start with, in an inconspicuous spot, start with denatured alcohol. That's the solvent for shellac. You can put a little bit on a Q-tip and you can massage that finish with Q-tip and see if it dissolves. If it does, this will dissolve shellac. It won't dissolve lacquer or varnish. If it does not, the next solvent to try is lacquer thinner. Lacquer thinner, oddly enough, will dissolve lacquer and shellac. That's why we're doing this second. So put a little on a Q-tip, try it on the finish, see if it dissolves. If it does not, then you probably have a varnish. If it's a table that was commercially made, there's a great chance that it's lacquer on it. Lacquer is pretty widely used in industry and more commonly used for projects than varnish. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if it's lacquer, but that test will tell you what finish you've got.
Okay, and I'm going to just have you hang on a second because we have another question about table. Apparently, people like to eat on tables. I don't get it.
Am I holding my solvents or?
Maybe, I'm not sure. I don't think so. Eric says his dining room table often has the finish softened on the top and leaves an off-white mark after eating temperatures, like hot things, like when his plates are hot. What type of finish would you recommend to prevent this from happening if he is to refinish his table?
Polyurethane or something in the varnish family. So I think, I'm going to guess you've got a table that's got lacquer on it. And lacquer is a great product. It dries really fast. It's easy to spray. That's why they like it in industry. It doesn't have a lot of heat, water, and alcohol resistance, more than shellac does. I would check into the varnishes and polyurethanes for something that's got better heat resistance.
Great. And another dining room table. So turning and dining room tables. Go ahead. Put that away. John says he's refinishing a dining room table. He has 3 coats of polyurethane on it. He was thinking of knocking the dust and hairs out of it with 400 grit minimum, and then thinking of rubbing in Danish oil afterwards. Is that a great idea? It looks good at this point, and he wants to really knock it out.
I am not a mixing finishes kind of guy, so I don't want to answer because there can be compatibility issues between different finishes, and so I don't know for sure that Danish oil over an abraded polyurethane surface is a great idea. And my concern would be, obviously the Danish oil is not going to soak into the polyurethane, even though you've toothed it a little bit with 400 grit. So will it dry? That's my question. And I don't know the answer to that. So I'm sorry, but I'm not that's not my cup of tea in the world of finishes. So I don't know. Okay.
Corey would like to know, well, first, Corey loves your work and videos, and thanks you very much.
Thank you, Corey.
The question is what is the best way to book match a piece of quilted maple without a bandsaw? The bandsaw is not tall enough for the wood that Corey is wanting to cut.
We can do a hands-on here. We're ready to make a move?
Yep.
Okay. Let me get, I'm gonna point you to the table saw, Krista. I'm gonna get my earmuffs. It's kind of dark on this side of the shop, relatively speaking. All right, let me do a couple things here. I'm going to turn off the main. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do some work on the table saw. And basically, this is a resawing operation. We're going to resaw sort of in bits and pieces. I'm taking the splitter off because we're going to do a blind cut, so the full basket can't be on there. However, we can use the riving knife, but I grabbed the wrong one. That's the thin curve riving knife. That's the standard plate riving knife. Okay. All right, so the question is, I've got wide stuff I want to resaw. Bandsaw is not really an option. So we can do it here on the table saw by setting up the fence for our resaw. And are you okay? Can you maybe move to your right just?
Oh,
so.
yeah, of course.
Thank you.
How's that?
Way more better. All right, so I'm just eyeballing this, but of course what we would do is grab a measurement between the fence and the table saw blade, raise our blade. Now a critical part of this is the cut we're gonna make twice. A few things are critical. The back face of this has been flattened. I did that with a face joint on a jointer. The edges have been jointed. Those are critical because the edges are sitting down on the table. So they need to be a nice true surface so this doesn't walk. This face has to be fairly true because it's going to go against our fence. The other thing that's an important setup thing is a feathery board. And if you've not seen them already, boy, these magnetic feather boards from MagSwitch are really cool. Little bit of pressure on my board, turn those, and that's locked in place. Incredible magnetic power. Again, MagSwitch is the company. Google them or look at Woodcraft and Rockler, stores like that. They've got them in stock. Big thing with the featherboard is it's in front of, it's my side of the saw blade because we don't want the featherboard pushing on wood and then in turn pushing against the blade. I just clicked my main back on so the computer has a chance to catch up with us. So featherboard is in front of the blade. Lateral pressure so it stays tight to the fence. We're going to make this cut, rotate, cut again. You want to be sure you rotate. Don't change faces. Now we can raise the blade and go again.
Rotate the board, just in case.
I forget.
That it's noisy?
Well, yeah, and when we're doing video, I have a lavalier mic on. So if I'm talking over the machine, it usually picks it up. But I forget with this that I don't have a lavalier on. So what I was saying when I was still making noise here was you want to be sure that you make the cut, rotate end for end, come back and make the next cut. Don't flip this. Don't change faces against the fence. Now where we're at with this is even at its maximum height setting, my saw is not capable of cutting through this. So we've got that little bridge in the middle. And of course, the wider the board, the bigger the remaining bridge is going to be. So then this could go to a workbench, use a handsaw. Sorry, Krista, I keep messing up.
All right.
Use a handsaw and just cut through that remaining bridge. And the two pieces will separate. You'll have a book match. You're good to go. So one, if you don't own a bandsaw that you can resaw on, or two, you run into scenarios where the bandsaw can't handle your work. This on the table saw is a great way to go. In case somebody's going to ask, we're using a 40-tooth alternate top bevel blade to make that cut.
Perfect. Why don't you stay right there, maybe? Daryl says when he is resawing, sometimes the saw pulls the wood through rapidly on its own and then bogs down. It also screeches when this happens. This might happen several times on the same board. Any idea why this is happening? Is it operator error? It tends to be when I'm using hard exotic wood. He is using a 1-inch carbide resaw blade.
It's weird that it would, I don't understand what would make it self-feed. A lot of the exotic woods can be really hard. some of them, like teak, have silica in them, which can be really hard on cutting tools and would certainly explain then the screeching. But man, I've never experienced any feeling. I've done a lot of resawing on the bandsaw. I've never had a feeling where it's feeding itself. I don't know what to attribute that to. Sorry.
Okay. So we've got a few questions coming in about dust collection. People are asking, like, okay, so for example, someone wants to know, is there a dust collector for a tabletop planer? Someone else wants to know, what do you recommend for dust collection? What size pipe and things like that. So I don't know if you just want to
speak for a second.
Yeah.
Sure.
And maybe we can rotate back to the lathe.
Okay. Lathe. Okay.
Or actually, how about the biscuit joiner first? Or the biscuit, whatever.
Domino?
The domino, that's what I meant.
Okay. Dust collection for a benchtop planer? Sure, almost anything. Planers need, you want to show them the benchtop planer? Is that what you're?
Well, no, maybe just a dust collection.
Okay. Well, and my system is a little big, maybe compared to what people might have in a smaller shop, but tabletop or benchtop planer. Oh, where are you?
I'm just showing them the dust collection.
Got it. Planers need somewhere around 300 or 400 CFM to effectively collect chips from that. And that's not a hard number for dust collectors to hit at when you're on one tool. Here, obviously, there are multiple tools connected to one collector, although we typically are only using one or two at a time. But lots of dust collectors out there that have the oomph required to get enough pickup for a benchtop planer. Size of pipe, it's a huge, it depends. What you want to do, how about this, Krista? Can you get on, can you come over? Yeah, I mean, you could probably stay there, but give us a zoom. Oh, but then it gets hard to hear so I'm going to stand over here. And then if you do a tilt up to that turn in the pipe and then follow it to the right, there you go. So what you want to do is keep the pipe as big as possible, as long as possible. So if you look there, that's a 6-inch pipe. And then when you get to the drop that's going to the jointer, which you're almost there, somewhere about there, now tilt down, then it finally turns to 4-inch. So on pipe size, keep it as large in diameter as you can for as long as you can so that you're not choking the airflow down. And then as far as the accumulation of numbers to get everything to work, it's great to get help with that. For instance, if you get an Oneida dust collector, you can give them your shop layout, tell them what tools you have, and they will help you size everything. You need to know the CFM requirements for your individual tools. Then that's going to also help you determine your pipe sizes, what size dust collector you need. Are you going to be using more than one tool at once? Or if you're a one-person shop, you're only running one thing at a time, that changes the size of the dust collector. So there's a lot of parameters on that dust collection stuff.
Perfect. All right, while you're walking this way, I'm going to ask a quick question. Roger is trying to match some rough cut cedar on his house, cedar trim. He's read if you bend a few teeth on your bandsaw blade, it will give you the rough cut look. How many teeth and how can he bend them? Or is this something that you've not done?
I haven't done it, and it sounds pretty scary. Scary and a little unpredictable. I mean, I guess cedar is pretty soft, so it's going to cut easy. It feels to me like on the rough sawn cedar I see around here, the stripes are long ways, are parallel to the grain, not across the grain. And with a bandsaw, if you're resawing the length of a piece, you're going to have your stripes going crossways. I guess, no, I've never done it. You could experiment with it, but boy, I'd be really careful. Because as you bend the teeth, you're increasing the kerf of the blade and asking it to do something it certainly wasn't designed to do. You're also possibly going to have some ill effect on your tires because now the teeth on the tire side of the blade are sticking out pretty far. And you might wear that pretty fast. So I don't know anything about it. I'd be really careful about experimenting with that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And just a reminder for anyone who's just joined us, I am here with George Von Driska, the managing editor of Woodworkers Guild of America. That's you can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, go out to WWGOA, Instagram, go to WWGOA.com. Lots of information out there. Sign up for the newsletters, you know, all that fun stuff, right?
Can we ask, what time is it?
7:30.
Can we ask my favorite question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Where is everyone watching from? I always like to know where people are watching from.
Wonderful.
There we go, move on.
Okay, Andy would like you to please show us how to use the Biscuit joiner.
Biscuit or Domino?
It says Biscuit joiner, but I'm thinking it means Domino.
How about if we do both? Because I'm pretty sure I got a biscuit joiner on the table here. All right, let's make some joinery magic happen right now. Here we go. All right, so biscuit joiners and the Domino are very similar, clearly, or look very similar, but do different things. I was going to apologize for my dirty fingers. Today was putting new wheel bearing in the 2000 Saturn day. So, like right before we did this, I was under a car putting a new wheel bearing in it. Okay. I'm going to push the bench this way, Krista, and work off the end of it. Yeah. Get some dust collection going. All right, let's do the biscuit joiner first. So here's the dealio with the biscuit joiner. I'll come to you first. Okay. Do you have any more Zoom?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Nice. So when we, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to back up, because I know we get into kind of a lighting issue on these tight shots. So I'm going to get under these ceiling lights a little bit more. Okay. And then if you set up again, Chris, I think we'll be a little better. All right. On a biscuit joiner, there's a blade in here. I think it's 5 inches in diameter. It's currently unplugged. When we plunge, a portion of that blade comes out. How much blade depends on what size you're set for. Face frame biscuits, number 0, number 10, number 20. So the bigger the biscuit, the more penetration we need. So the way I would use this is, first step, I'm going to make sure my fence is in the right spot. The fence is controlling how far down the edge of the board I'm about to cut a biscuit slot. A lot of biscuit joiners have handles on the top. That's good for carrying it around the shop. It's not good for making your cut. What I recommend to students is put a thumb on the fence, rock this down, and then with this hand, in my case, my left hand, hold that tight to the surface. And with your right hand, operate the switch and do the plunge. The reason I don't like using this is it can cause the whole biscuit joiner to rack up, and that'll really mess up your slot. So if we get some power going, and earbuds, and dust collection. Here we go. Are you where you want to be? You ready for me?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, that's simple. Now, if we talk through Domino, things are very similar. First thing I would do is set the fence, make sure it's in.
Sorry, I thought you were going to show us the plunge mechanism again.
I'm good.
Oh.
You're doing the right thing.
Yeah, of course I am.
Okay. And if anybody asks, you'll just tell them.
That's right.
Okay, so here's the difference with the Domino. As Krista said, let's do this in the same order. Let's do the plunge mechanism. So when I plunge, there's not a plate in there. There's a bit, like a drill bit or a router bit. What? Okay. So what's going to happen when that runs, and I'll run it off the wood so you can see it. It's going to turn and it's going to oscillate back and forth like this. The rest of this is very similar. We've got a fence that's going to control the distance above our work. We're going to get on our work, make a plunge. There's another component on here that allows me to control the depth of that plunge. Let me run it off the work for a second so you can see what that cutter looks like. All right, am I in the right spot for you?
Yeah.
I'll just goose it a couple times.
Okay.
All right, so then when we run it, when we cut, fence flat on our work, right hand is going to run the switch, make the plunge. I'm just going to spin it to you, Krista, so they can see the resulting slots. Can you get them both, the Biscuit and the Domino? So here's the really big difference between the Biscuit slot and the Domino slot is depth of cut. We get so much more penetration from a Domino or a beadlock that as a result, it's a much stronger joint than what we would get from a Biscuit. I wouldn't hesitate for a second to use a beadlock or a Domino to build a chair. I would not use a Biscuit to build a chair. I don't think you have enough strength in the joints.
All right. Kurt would like to know, he has approximately 100 board feet of 4x4 rough cut red oak, and some is case hardened. He has increased the relative humidity to 45% to try and get the edges to draw more moisture. His question is, will increasing the relative humidity to 45% be enough to repair the case hardened oak?
I'm going to just grab this board we just cut because it speaks to what we're talking about here. So I think not 4x4. I'm going to guess what he means is 4/4. Maybe
It says 4-4, so I don't know.
So 4/4 would be 1 inch thick. Case hardening, if you've not run into this, is when the outside of the material is dried to a different percentage than the core of the material. And the reason I went and got this piece is that if this piece had been case hardened, when we made this first cut, it would go really bad. It would either expand because we would be releasing tension, or it would shrink, causing it to pinch in on the saw blade. When it's been perfectly dried inside and out, and we make the can we get the outside to a point where it will increase in humidity and moisture to match the inside? And boy, I don't think so. I would call the Wood Lab at Madison, Wisconsin. And if somebody's got the name, post it for us. It's Forest Products Research Lab, I think is what it's called. But they've got information about solar kilns. They know more about wood than anybody else in the country. This would be a great question for them. But my leaning would be, once you're case hardened, you're case hardened.
Okay, I have a little more information on that resaw that gets pulled through. I think it was on the bandsaw, actually.
Yeah, because he said he was using a 1 inch carbide tip.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought maybe you still thought it was.
Yeah, no, and I don't,
Okay.
and then it's even weirder, sort of, because the blade is driving down to the table. I guess the rake angle, the hook angle on the teeth could cause some pulling, but I've used some pretty aggressive blades. I've never seen that happen.
Okay. Robert would like to know, is there a drill press guide that tells what speed to use for different types of bits for an application? Example, Fastener bit versus brad point versus regular drill bit, like a guide.
Yeah. So it won't be, style of bit won't matter, but diameter of bit will matter. So it's kind of like, it's like using the routing table or using a router. As we get to a larger diameter thing, we have to run it at a lower RPM. We do not have one on Woodworkers Guild, but it's a great idea, and we should. So that'll give us something to work on. It's worth a Google search. And sorry, Woodworkers Guild doesn't have one for you.
Oh, but maybe you'll rectify that.
It'd be an easy thing to do, and then we can post it.
All right, thanks for the idea, Robert. And just a reminder, since you brought it up, if you're not subscribed to the Woodworkers Guild of America newsletter, please go out to WWGOA.com and sign up. You get some free videos, a lot of good articles, information for you out there.
And it's wood turning month at Woodworkers Guild.
That's right, that's right. All right, John has a question. He has a 2-inch sanding pad on a spinning axle that is non-motorized. What is the correct way to use it? When it gets spinning against the wood, it does not seem to be doing much sanding.
I know what he's talking about. Anytime. It's kind of cool. Go ahead for the lathe if you would, please, Kristen.
Great, okay. Difficult thing for me to do.
All right. Took me a second to think of this, but I think this is what we're talking about. So this disc, non-motorized, on a handle. It's hook and loop. So let me grab a piece of abrasive. This is a Robert Sorby product I've had for quite a while. So the way this works is when I press this up against a bowl.
Oh, lathe is turning. Oh, look at lathe.
How's that light for you?
That's fine.
Okay, we're gonna go inside here. When I press this up against the bowl, the spinning action of the bowl causes this to spin, the disc, and the cutting action of the sandpaper comes from this is turning radially across the face. Probably easier to see it than for me to explain it. So you can see when we're out on the rim of the bowl, where there's a higher rim speed, we get more RPM on the sander, less RPM in the middle. So I'm a little surprised. Well, and here's the dealio. This is probably not going to be as aggressive as you putting a sanding disc on a drill and running it against the bowl. But I think if you picture in your head the before and after here, or you could rewind the video once it's archived. This, in a fairly short amount of time with about an 80 grit paper, did a pretty good job on those tool marks. So I do find that this works and I like it. It's squishy, so it'll conform to the bottom of the bowl. It gives you a big handle to hold on to. We can change this depending on what part of the bowl that we're working on. So I do find it's a pretty effective way to do bowl sanding.
Perfect. While we're there, Scott has a question. He's been using a small lathe to turn pens for a while. He's also built up a large assortment of exotic wood blocks for bowls. He's not comfortable yet in mounting the blocks to the lathe. He remembers in high school, about 40 years ago, that he used a paper joint to turn a large maple bowl. He's also used screws to mount the bowl to the faceplate. Can you offer some suggestions? Yep.
So paper joint is a great way to go. And you can use the search window on WWGOA.com, upper right-hand corner of the homepage of all the pages, and search paper joint. And we've got video that covers this. And I'd really like you to look at that video before you do the technique, because there are some things that are key to making it work. The paper joint is very secure. And I'm just trying to think if I've got anything laying here that's got a paper joint on it. And I don't think I do. Paper joint is very secure, but you got to use the right paper. You got to do it the right way. Screwing directly to the faceplate is fine, except it automatically limits your depth of cut, because now you've got screws going into the bottom of the bowl, and then you've also got screw holes in the bottom when it's done. So do a little research on GOA on paper joint, and you'll have that technique covered.
Perfect. We have a question about sharpening lathe tools.
Okay.
And I know we did address it before, so just so you guys know, everything is archived, so you can go out and find these. But just quickly, is there an inexpensive way to sharpen lathe tools to a good sharp edge? This person's been looking at different bench grinders and sharpening setups like Tormek, but doesn't have a lot of cash to spend.
Well, a whetstone. Why don't you do a shameless promotion and I'll go get a stone.
Okay, so a shameless promotion. Well, I'm here with George Von Driska, managing editor of Woodworkers Guild of America. How many of you guys are do so? Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and go out to WWGOA.com and sign up for our newsletter.
All right. Now to the bench, you can play.
Wow, okay.
Okay. So if you want to be low tech, you can get a whetstone. And wet, of course, is W-H-E-T. We're wetting the edge, not W-E-T. This particular one is a diamond stone. It doesn't have to be a diamond stone. I'm throwing on a little lapping fluid that prevents the swarf, the grit we're about to make, from sticking in the stone. It helps carry it away. And then we can simply roll that edge. And depending on the chisel, there's different techniques. If it's a round bowl gouge like this versus a skew versus a round scraper. So those are all going to take slightly different techniques, but a whetstone is a very effective way to cover or to sharpen. For me, it's just painfully slow. I want to get back to turning. So I would consider looking at something like a low RPM grinder is a great choice. The work sharp system is a great choice. That's going to get you back to your lathe a lot faster.
Okay, thanks, George. Dale has a comment and question. He recently made an end grain cutting board from walnut, cherry, and hard maple. Fortunately, he made some test pieces before putting on the mineral oil. He sanded the test pieces to 120, 180, and 220 grit. Okay. The hard maple turned almost the shade of the cherry on all three grits. What is he doing wrong? He knows that end grain will turn darker, but should it turn all the way to cherry? Could it be the hard maple that he used?
Yeah, we had this question. We answered this question last time as well. And the general speculation from the viewership, which I agree with, is I wonder if there was something on the rag that migrated into the maple, because the mineral oil itself, there's a, Chris, if you want to grab it, if you got a sec, the end grain cutting board, is that what you're looking for? It's over there by the shop lot. Maple, cherry, walnut, mineral oil isn't going to turn the maple cherry color. The only thing that kind of, like I said, collectively, as people were responding to this question last time, was what else could have migrated? And we're speculating that maybe something from the cloth you were using. This one is, in fact, yeah, same stuff, walnut, cherry, maple, with just a single coat of mineral oil on it. So the maple will darken, but the turning red, I just don't get. And even if there was some sanding residue on there, the mineral oil should flush it out, flush it off. So I'm going to stick with holding the finishing rag as a suspect here.
Perfect. And then we have a question here from Matt. Can you talk about breadboard ends for large tabletops? And I know you also do them sometimes on end grain cutting boards.
Right, and not an end grain, but
I mean, on cutting boards. Yeah. Is there a benefit to doing a large tenon the full length of the breadboard end versus 3 or more smaller tenons?
Well, it depends on how large you're going to get. So let's do this. I got a tool chest here, so we can back up the truck.
And we are like 10 minutes to 8 already.
Okay. And Krista, if you could come in on about like this corner.
And we just want to remind viewers too that if we don't get to your question right now, George does go through and read them and answer them after we're done with this.
Yeah, sometime in the next hour or so. But then they don't always post right away. But in the next 24 hours, we'll get an answer to questions that did not get answered by. And then just tilt down a little bit to this corner.
Oh,
there we go.
Sorry.
So breadboard end, The field of the top is going, the grain is going this way. Breadboard end, the grain is going this way. And if you look in there, there's a tongue and groove joint that holds them together. In this case, this top, I believe, is 14 inches wide. The tongue is the full length of the top. However, it's only glued in the very center. And we've got some videos on this on WWGOA. The reason it's only glued in the center is this is a cross grain arrangement here. And if we don't get if we glue the entire thing, when this field expands and contracts or tries to independently of this one, it's going to crack. So only about 4 inches in the middle, about the center third has been glued. As far as divvying it up, there would be nothing wrong with that. And I'm going to say the wider you go, probably the more likely you would be to maybe do multiple tenons instead of one long tongue. But you can't glue each of those subsections because you're still binding the whole top to that cross grain arrangement. So you're only going to glue it, or out here on the ends, you could do pins up from the bottom. You have to have oversized holes in the tongue with a pin going through the breadboard end so that the field can expand and contract independently of the pin. And that'll help hold everything tightly closed. So yeah, I think I answered the question.
Yep, I think so too. All right, Doug, he just has a question. He enjoyed your lathe extravaganza class
Again.
that you taught several years ago. Any chance you're considering rerunning that or running it again?
Yeah, so thanks for asking, Doug. And we're doing, in the new building here, been in here 3 years now. The very first class in this building is going to be June 25th of this month. Classes are posted on vondriskawoodworks.com. Going into next fall, we're going to ramp up with cabinet making, lathe turning, the most popular classes that I used to do in my old shop. So yes is the answer. You'll see all sorts of class offerings coming up over the next year.
Perfect, thank you. Jason wants to know, what is an easy and inexpensive way to prevent chatter when hollowing bowls or vases on a lathe?
So my guess is going to be hollowing. So you're reaching inside. So this goes back to earlier on our lathe question. We talked about the importance of keeping the tool rest as close as it can be to the cutting action. When you're doing a long hollow, you can't. So part of the key to that is just sharp chisels, very light passes, and you will see that on some of those deep reach tools, longer handles, and that's to help overcome the leverage that's on the other end because you're cantilevered over the tool rest. And some of them even have grips on them just to help you, different configurations of grips to make it easier for you to hold on to. But standard tools, light passes, keep them sharp, and on a hollowing operation, you kind of have no choice but to cantilever. So take it easy.
I'm probably going to mess this up. Nava, I'm sorry, I apologize. Watching from New Jersey and
Nice.
Wants to know, and this might be something from the on the website, what is the best way to calculate the cuts on a picture frame? Sometimes a miter cut is used, sometimes a domino joiner, sometimes different size wood is used, and it looks like this individual is spending way too much time trying to figure it out, and also is having a difficult time finding the glue you use that makes paint look old, but I think it was actually paint, the crackle paint.
Yeah, so calculating angles for a miter. Let me get this. And the felt tip.
And then I would just mention while George is gathering stuff, we have had quite a lot of questions about setting up shop. Like if you're a new woodworker, you're just getting into it, and you want to know what are the best tools. We've answered this question, I think every week we get this question.
Every month, yeah.
Or every month, excuse me. So if you go back and look at the archives, It is on there, and I know George has written or is writing an article that's like the top, 10 tools you recommend for a shop, is that
So,
right?
Well, yeah, and and it can be idiosyncratic to woodworkers. So I've got an article on WWGOA that's my top. Paul Mayer has one. I think we have another one as well. I can't remember by whom. So that's a way to solicit a lot of different opinions. So if you, again, use that search window on WWGOA and look for starter tools, setting up shop, that kind of stuff, you'll get some ideas. All right, so on a miter. I feel like I've got two pads in. I guess I don't. What we want to do is look at the thing that we're making, which could be a square or rectangle, could be an octagon. And remember that from our geometry days, there are 360 degrees in any of these objects. So if we take 360, first step is to divide it by the number of sides in your object. So 360 degrees in a circle or a square. In a frame, we have 4 sides. So we would divide it by 4, and the answer is 90. Well, that's the angle that the corner makes. We cut that in 2, divided by 2. That tells us each side of that angle is going to be 45 degrees. So if we want to do an octagon, 360 divided by 8 is some number, 45. So we take 360 divided by 8 equals 45. That's this angle. Half of that means it's 22.5 degrees per side. So fairly simple formula will help you figure out what angle you need to cut at. And then it sounded like the rest of the question was about what kind of joinery to use, and that's kind of an it depends. For smaller picture frames, there's nothing wrong with cutting the miter. If it's a good miter, glue it together, done. If it's a big frame, it's going to hold something heavy like a mirror, stained glass. That's where reinforcing it with a domino or a biscuit or a spline of some kind pays off, because end grain to end grain in a miter isn't incredibly strong. Plenty strong for an 8x10 picture of the family, but not strong enough for a huge stained glass window.
Thanks, George. So we have 2 minutes left, and I think there's 2 more questions that we should ask. If you don't mind going a little longer, I think Sam, our wonderful gal, she's on the other end. I think she's all right with it. We love Sam. And this one you might, again, be able to answer like on the website, I think. So the question is, Brian asks, how do you make a sliding dovetail joint? It's to make a tool for drawing oval shapes.
So you want a loose sliding dovetail. Yeah, boy, I can't get through that in 2 minutes. It'd be a great demonstration for our next live.
Okay.
I don't know. We've done sliding dovetails on video. I don't know for certain that it's on the website, but use the search window in the upper right-hand corner and search sliding dovetail. And what you'll want to do if we're making it for joinery, when I've done it for video, it's been for something like a drawer box. I'm making it quite tight. And I think for your jig, you need these parts to slide past each other. So the difference will be you're going to want to make your tail a little bit undersized so it readily moves. It's all stuff you can do on a router table. It's a great router table operation.
Okay, so our last question kind of borders on that home improvement woodworking, but I think we can do it. Because, what is the deal, George?
We are woodworkers, not home improvement. Is that what?
Yeah. So we do have home improvement questions, and so we are trying to do the woodworking questions tonight.
Yeah, Family Handyman is a great resource for DIY home improvement. We're a woodworking kind of group.
Yeah, but I think this kind of borders. I think we can do it. So John says he needs to strip, restain, and refinish an oak front door. Okay, it's currently a medium oak stain, and it's probably shellac. The door is about 30 years old. It is protected from the sun by a large covered porch. What do you recommend to strip it and then to refinish it? Oh, come on, George.
Well, I'm not much of a refinishing guy, and I think the last piece of furniture I stripped might have been 30 years ago, and yes. I think the chemicals have changed a lot. At that time it was stuff that if you looked at it, it burned your skin, much less touched it. I'm guessing that those super strong chemicals might not be in the marketplace anymore. So here's what I would do. Rather than count on me, who knows not what he speaks of, I would go to Sherwin-Williams, a paint store in your area. Other names are escaping me. But I would go to a paint store in your area, tell them exactly what you're asking me, and see what's in the marketplace today for good strippers. On the finishing side, this is where you want to be in the varnish family. Varnish, polyurethane, spar varnish. Even if it's protected by a covered porch, you might have some UV issues. There are spar varnishes that will provide UV resistance. Spar varnishes also have a better ability to expand and contract with the thing. So where you've got the inside of the door is on a heated surface, outside of the door is uncontrolled temperature. It's whatever the outside is. You might have some expansion contraction issues there. So yeah, I would go probably with some kind of a spar varnish for a top coat when you're done, but I just do not know much about stripping furniture or doors.
All right, perfect.
Do we have a read on the overall?
I'm gonna give it to you.
Where people are?
I'm gonna give it to you
Thank
right
you.
now. Just chill.
It's
Just
killing
calm
me.
down. All right, we've got viewers from Virginia, Texas, Kentucky, New York, Melbourne, Australia, where apparently it's a bright, beautiful, sunny morning. I don't know.
So it's 8 p.m. here. It's tomorrow, I think, in Australia.
I think so.
Isn't it?
I think it's June 10th.
It's okay.
Okay, Ohio, Florida, Michigan, New Jersey, I think I said that. Texas, Montreal, Alberta,
Is
Canada.
it tomorrow or Montreal?
I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe California, Arizona, Calgary.
We have a lot of Canadians watching tonight.
Mm-hmm. We have a Queensland, Australia.
Nice.
That might be the one area. Nope, we have Melbourne and Queensland. Idaho and New Zealand. And Brazil.
Nice. Well, so thanks to you folks for watching nationwide and worldwide. We really appreciate your participation in this, because if you weren't watching, we wouldn't have reason to do it. Thanks to Krista for the great job she does running the camera. And as she said, Sam is quietly behind the scenes moderating all this stuff. And she's the one that's really been huge in making sure the technical aspect here keeps chunking along. If you were watching lives, 4 months ago?
Something like that. We didn't
hopefully,
have Sam.
yeah, hopefully you've seen a significant improvement in our technical side. And a lot of that is thanks to the work Sam has done behind the scenes to make this happen.
It's 9 p.m. in Canada, in Montreal.
Yeah, I was joking. I didn't really think it was tomorrow, but I'm not quite that stupid about the dateline, but time zones I can be. All right, we're going to get the dog in here. Is that what we're going to try this? Okay, so we're going to try to get Sheba, the bench dog, to say goodbye. But honestly, she doesn't do tricks for me quite as well as she does for Krista. So we'll see if we can make this happen. Come here, Sheba. And don't look like you're having such a horrible time. I'm sorry for this. Let's go this way. I scraped my leg on something earlier. I don't know what. I've got a bad cut on my leg. All right, come here. Sit. All right, now, Krista, if we want her to wave from the sitting position, right?
Yeah, from the sitting position, you just say, wave.
Wave, 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 wave. Yeah, that's speak. Yeah, okay. Speak. Okay, that's very good. How about good talk? Okay, that's very good. Maybe if you start getting food induced. Okay. High five. There we go. Okay. Is there something else I should be?
Yeah, you can make her wave.
Oh.
Wave goodbye.
Wave goodbye.
Oh, perfect.
Wave goodbye.
All right,
Okay.
and we're
Speak.
out.
Okay. All right. See you, folks.